All right, February 23rd, 2025. This is my review of Leviticus chapter 20, 21, and 22 of reading the Bible in a year chronologically. We start out with instructions to the native Israelites and foreigners with them living in the land. So it's not only just the native Israelites. There was a way to include foreigners living in the land if they wanted to be and worship, be part of the Israelite clan and worship the one true God. And that's where I think sometimes, there's more to it than that. I mean, God tells the Israelites later, further on, when they go into the promised land, that they'll start to drive out and kill everybody off because God does not want them to worship their gods. It's to Him and Him alone. Then we get into Moloch, and I was going to try to do a little bit of a study on Moloch, but I believe that Moloch, the big thing there is it was a false god. Again, it's a false god. It's a god created by Satan, basically, for people to worship instead of the one true God, our true God, the Creator. Moloch is a god. It's a demon, and people would sacrifice their children to them. I've heard it's a very sickening, grotesque sacrifice, and they would kill their children for this. I think that the spirit of Moloch is still alive and well today, and that's where we get the whole abortion and why that's so promoted as the only way. I believe that's kind of along the spirits of Moloch. It's a false god to kill children to. It's spiritual prostitution to these false gods, and they talk about mediums and people reaching out to spirits. That's kind of pretty important, and God doesn't want us to defile ourselves in that way, and it's sickening. It's wrong. God is not that God. He is a God of honor and true, and He wants everybody to know Him. He created us, and He creates every one of us, all the children, every person He has created, and He wants nothing more for His creation to have a relationship with Him and want Him. And He created this way in the Old Testament about how to do that, how to maintain that relationship. And it's a shadow of things to come. And Jesus came and He fulfilled all these laws and these rules that we could not do ourselves, that just isn't natural for us to do, and we have to work for, and that we mess up. He came and fulfilled the law. We are obligated to worship the one true God. Do not create or participate in spiritual prostitution by worshiping false gods and mediums and idols and things. We can, to this day, we can still worship our money or idols, and those kind of things are things that we like to do. Even hunting and fishing and those fun things that we enjoy can become an idol, as opposed to God. Worship the one true God first. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with hunting and fishing and cars and sports, and I can enjoy and understand the desire to do those things and be participants in them, but God comes first. Otherwise, it's an idol. Then we see that there's death for adultery and death for committing certain sins, and there's certain sexual sins that deserve death, and then certain sexual sins that don't deserve death. And there just deserves a separation. It's very interesting how that works. And then we get into unclean and clean animals, and don't defile yourselves by eating unclean animals. And then we get into the rules for the priests, the instructions on what they can and can't do. And the rules for priests were even stricter than the rules for the Israelites. They were a higher standard. And the whole idea was to not bring shame to the name of God. I didn't want any descendant of Aaron to have a defect, even to present the offering to God, that offering. And be careful with the sacred gifts when bringing them to the altar, so that they do not bring shame on my name, God says. I am the Lord. We don't want to bring shame to the name of God, although many of us Christians today bring shame to the name of God by not digging in and finding out what it is that he wants and what is good, what is true, what is righteous, how should we act, how should we treat one another, again, with love. We get into the offerings, about the offerings having to be pure, again, without defects. And again, we should be giving our first fruits and not our second choice. Oh, we're going to get rid of that anyway. I might as well offer that to God. That's not an offering. That's not a sacrifice. He's asking them to sacrifice something, to give up something, because he provides it all. God provides every little bit that we have or earn. He provides the air that we breathe. He made it all. He doesn't need it all. He doesn't need it as a sacrifice. He's just looking for that back. And again, Jesus paid it all. He took the imperfect process laid out here and fulfilled all of it with himself. And now we have to know him first. Know him. That is our worship, our true worship. And we want to be sure not to bring shame on the holy name of God, seeking him in everything that we do, seeking to love him, and remembering that final commandment that Jesus gave, and that's to love others as he has loved us. He said, love others as I have loved you, the new commandment that I give you. And that's what we're to do. We have to look at how did he love. He didn't hold back truth. He fulfilled all these things. He was without sin. He was ceremonially clean. I still can't say it, but and he died and rose again on the third day. That's what we know. That's my reflections of this reading of Leviticus. I saw the theme of do not bring shame on my name. We have to be careful of that. But a lot of the other laws and rules and the way they did things, that's been fulfilled with Jesus coming and his death, burial, and resurrection on the cross, and our acceptance of him and believing that. Wonderful.